We've got Hugh Rundle with us. Hugh is a librarian and advocate for open culture and free software. When not making trouble and writing crappy code, Hugh works at La Trobe University Library. In 2020, Hugh started building an interactive map of Australia's public library services, rules and collections. This involved using open data from multiple sources provided in multiple formats. Hugh's experiences sparked some questions both for people using open data and for those publishing and managing it. And he's here today to explore some of those with us. Welcome, Hugh.
Thanks, Bonnie. So thanks, everyone. I'm abusing my privileges today by starring in my own mini-comp. Today, I'm speaking to you from unceded Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, where people from many Indigenous nations now live. I pay respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and I really hope to learn more from them in future. I'm going to talk to you about a little project I've been working on. It's a map of libraries, and I believe in calling things what they are, so I called it Library Map. It maps data about both library services and library buildings across the continent of Australia and some Australian external territories. The libraries layer maps out physical library locations and also shows an 800-metre radius around the library. And that's the distance that's generally accepted by urban planners as the average most people think of as within walking distance, sort of psychologically. So it's sort of a useful proxy for, is this a walkable library? The rules layer shows fines regimes. The green and purple layers you can see here, and they are overlaid with the lending period, which is the patterns you can see. So you can see both in combination for each library service. Future layers will include which integrated library management software each library service uses, and that's coming very soon. I've got most of the data I need for that. And which languages are held at which physical libraries, and that's coming soon-ish. The tech stack is a few comma-separated values files, the open source QGIS software application, which is used to create the single GeoJSON file from multiple geodata sources. And I also use it to extract data as CSV files from some other data sources. So the Tasmanian location data was originally in GeoJSON, but I wanted it in CSV. There's a very small Python script I wrote to merge data about library services from a CSV file into the GeoJSON file. There's a thing called TopoJSON, which is a way to massively reduce the file size of a GeoJSON file and therefore make it usable on the web. So the original GeoJSON file was like 360 megabytes, which you can't load in a browser. I turned that into TopoJSON and it's 2.5 meg. I then use the Leaflet JavaScript library to layer the data onto a map. And to do that, you need a tile service, and I'm using Mapbox, which is free and uses a lot of open source data from OpenStreetMap. So that's how it all works in terms of displaying the data, but how about getting the data in the first place? And that's definitely been the hardest part of the project, and I'm still missing a fair bit. I started by looking at data for the state of Victoria because that's where I live, and I worked in Victorian public libraries for a long time. So I searched for public libraries at the DataVic Open Data Portal, and immediately I struck gold. A CSV file with public library longitude and latitude coordinates for every library in the state. So I was like, this is going to be too easy. But after a while, I realized there was something wrong with the file. There were a lot of libraries missing, libraries I'd worked in, libraries I'd visited many times. So I took a closer look and I realized the data was at least 10 years out of date. DataVic had a feedback form, so I let them know about the out-of-date file, and I asked them if they could update it and suggested that they set up a system for keeping it up to date because, I'm helpful like that. And I got an email back from someone I'll call Sam from DataVic. Good afternoon, Hugh. Thank you for reaching out to us at data.vic. I will be retiring the record you referenced. You can access library locations data from the record below. I hope this helps. So it was good news. There was already an up-to-date file. So Sam was going to delete the old file. But what was this features of interest record? The URL Sam helpfully directed me to downloads a zip file that unzips into a folder that has 6 nested subdirectories that end in a collection of obscurely named files, one of which is a shapefile with GeoPoint data, a small subset therein being data about public libraries. All I wanted was for Datavic to update the CSV file of library locations, and instead I got a shapefile at the end of 6 nested subdirectories. It didn't feel like it was particularly helpful. I worked out how to export the shapefile data to CSV using QGIS, but I had no idea whether that was even possible when I actually received Sam's email originally. I'm not a geodata professional. I like looking at maps, but I barely understand what a projection is, and I don't really understand the difference between raster and vector formats. Now, in 2010, Tim Berners-Lee proposed a 5-star rating system for linked open data. The 5-star data concept was quickly embraced by open data enthusiasts, including the people who created and maintain open data portals for Australian government. In fact, the Australian open data portal data.gov.au explicitly rates all the data sets it has using the 5-star data system. But every step of the 5-star rating system has trade-offs. And whilst more stars means the data is more usable for some users and many machines, after a certain point, it actually becomes less usable for other people. So a key point for data maintainers to consider is that you don't have to exclusively provide data in only one format or set. Removing a data set because the same data is available as a subset of a file in a totally different format, frankly, is a pretty crappy way to maintain data openly. And don't get me wrong, I worked in local government for 17 years. I've been a knowledge systems maintainer for 20. I understand that data can be a pain in the neck to maintain. But I also think this can be used as an excuse for making data less accessible. It was profoundly frustrating for Data Victoria to provide geodata in CSV format, only to completely remove that format when they were asked to keep it up to date. It might be open, but is it generous? How many stars for accessibility and user-friendliness would you give Sam's obscure shapefile? Here's an example from data.gov.au of the formats available for the Western Australian local government boundaries. You can get this file in 2 different shapefile versions using a web mapping service or a web feature service or a GeoJSON, which is actually what I did. So if you want this data, you're not restricted to having to download only, for example, one single shapefile containing the LGA boundaries and the town locality boundaries and the state electoral boundaries and the federal electoral boundaries and so on. It'd be pretty simple for someone in the Victorian Geodata unit to set up a system that automatically spits out files in multiple formats for every subset of their gigantic features of interest file every time it's updated. This is the kind of thing that happens in software development every hour of every day. You just automate it. It doesn't require someone to create a bespoke file by hand every time the data changes. This would be the generous approach to open data. And to make the data open, not just in a technical letter of the law sense, but also much more openly approachable to people with a variety of skills and experience. I mean, it's nice that data.vic has a big features of interest file, but the only features I was interested in were the public libraries they'd previously provided us an out-of-date CSV file. I was pretty annoyed. So I typed out an enormous lie and sent it back to Sam from data.vic. Thanks, Sam. Makes sense. I can see how it would be tricky to maintain separate files for everything. Now, fortunately for Sam, I quickly got over my annoyance because I was about to confront the Kafkaesque world of the New South Wales Spatial Data Service. It took quite a long time to find the New South Wales features of interest geodata set, and then a while longer to work out how to download it without having to create an account in a mysterious web application. The button called Full Dataset seemed promising, but did not, in fact, download the full dataset. But finally, I found the magic filter. Building complex type 11, of course. I guess it's true that naming things really is one of the hardest problems in computer science. Anyway, it looks like that means libraries. Excellent. And so it did. But also TV stations and radio telescope locations and libraries in the ACT, which is not actually in New South Wales, and mysteriously some, but not all, university libraries. None of these including any street addresses. Truly a treasure trove of generous and open data. Thanks, New South Wales Spatial Data Team. Now, I don't want to take up my full 15 minutes sarcastically moaning about open data providers. So here are some people who are doing it really well. The State Library of Queensland provides full contact details, opening hours, and even the name of the software system for every library service in the state. The Tasmanian government provides a GeoJSON file with locations of every library, including whether it's wheelchair accessible. And Library South Australia provides lists in both PDF and Excel formats, listing every public library in the state, including address data and a KML file with locations. It'd be better if they included the geodata in a CSV file, but at least we can access it. And I'm not just saying that because CSV is what I wanted. I wanted the data in CSV for much the same reason that I think it's a good format generally. Let's go back to the library map tech stack. There's a lot of steps involved and a lot of different technologies. To follow my workflow for making the map, you need to know how to write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, understand what GeoJSON is and how to manipulate it, install and know how to run scripts with Python and Node.js, know how to manipulate files with QGIS, have a reasonably powerful computer in order to process 200 megabyte GeoJSON files, and learn how Leaflet works. So part of the reason I use the Leaflet CSV plugin is because storing data as CSV is just much more efficient and has smaller files than GeoJSON. But I also made this choice so that contributing to the project would be more open and accessible. If you want to help update the data used in Library Map, you only need to know how to edit fields in a relatively lightweight, comma-separated values file using any of the many applications designed to do that. So you can use Excel, LibreOffice, OpenOffice, Google Sheets. You can even use a simple text editor if you hate yourself that much. I don't want people to feel excluded from being able to contribute to the project just because their technical knowledge doesn't include writing JavaScript or how to install a usable Python environment, which even I can barely do. Now, I'm still missing quite a bit of data, so I need these contributors. If you'd like to help with the map, you can check out the contributing page on the website, which is on the screen. All the data is available in GitHub, and pull requests with updates about library service rules are particularly welcome. I'm planning to write a step-by-step guide on editing CSVs and making a pull request for people who are interested in helping but haven't used Git before, but I haven't done that yet. So, in summary, if you maintain open data in some capacity, I encourage you to think about how generous your data is. What assumptions are you making about what people might want to use your data for? Can you provide your data in more formats? Are your data formats accessible to people with varying skills and knowledge? And are you sure about that? So please visit librarymap.hue.run to check out the map. If you have any questions or suggestions, I'll be in the conference chat all day. You can also find me on Mastodon at hugh@ozglam.space, or you can email me at librarymap@hue.run. Thanks for coming to my GoGlam talk.
Hey, Hugh, thanks for that. I think one of the really interesting things you brought up is that difference between generous and open. And it's something we've tried to bring attention to here with our, GoGlam, which is generous and open galleries, libraries, and archives and museums, that there is that difference. And we may not necessarily be acknowledging or actually doing anything about that in what we release. So I'm going to let you jump into our chat stream. So we'll spend about 10 minutes in there. Everyone can ask Hugh loads of questions, and he'll try not to be sarcastic in his replies. Hugh, you promise?
Definitely won't be sarcastic to our lovely participants today.
Excellent. All right. So we'll spend 10 minutes in our chat stream, and then it's time for lunch. So we'd love to see what you're having for lunch. You can ping us on using the socials, the Twitter, hashtag GoGlam, hashtag LCA 2021. Show us what you're having for lunch. We're going to reconvene back here at 1:30, and we'll be joined by Mike Lynch. I just want to say it's already a fantastic day, and I'm so excited for our afternoon session. But that's it for me, and I'm going to go join Hugh in the chat. So we'll see you after lunch. Thank you.